This is my short clip on the spirit of adventure. My Uncle Bruce, I always was jealous of my Uncle Bruce growing up. He was born in 1930. He was actually the same age as my grandpa on my mom's side. My Uncle Bruce is my dad's oldest brother, and he was a philanthropist. He grew up in Idaho and then moved to Portland area he sold a lot of lumber in the logging industry and made quite a bit of money. And he ended up just buying an airplane and just traveling the country. I think he flew into 48 or 49 states. He landed in almost every single state. But Uncle Bruce was he was wild. He was just unpredictable. You know, he just get something in his head and he just, oh, let's go do this, right? And so in 1980, when Mount St. Helens blew, he was living in Portland, Oregon. And as I was going through pictures recently, I found some of these original pictures. And the only thing I could think of is Uncle Bruce gave Dad, you know, some of his pictures. These pictures were put in Life magazine that year. So if you can find a Life magazine from 1980 of Bruce Curtis, he's got some of these pictures in that magazine because they did an article about him. You know, he got close enough to the mountain after it blew where his plane started to sputter and he had to fly back away. And then the Federal Aviation Administration came out and had to like push him away from the area because he was flying around the mountain as it was erupting. So yeah, I mean, the spirit of adventure was alive and well in Uncle Bruce. When I was young, and I can't remember how old I was. I was younger than 10, so this is before 1980. I think this is probably like 1983, maybe 1982. We were visiting some other family, my Aunt Sid and Uncle Joe in Spokane, Washington, and it was my dad's older sister. He was only a year younger than Uncle Bruce, so she was a 1931 model. And you never knew when Bruce was going to show up. So we're over at Aunt Sid and Uncle Joe's place, and all of a sudden Uncle Bruce comes to the door, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And you know, everybody's kind of, "Oh, hi, Uncle Bruce," because they knew that, you know, you never knew when you're going to see Uncle Bruce. He was in and out. You never knew when he was coming over. And he looked at us boys, Ken and I, because my younger brother Ken is only a year younger than me. It's like, "Hey, do you boys want to go on a plane ride?" And we said, "Oh, sure." And so, um, we looked at Mom and Dad, and you said, "Yeah, go ahead. You can go with Uncle Bruce." So we went with Uncle Bruce back to the Spokane airport, and Uncle Bruce took us to. He just took off, and he started heading towards Silver Mountain, the gondola that goes up Silver Mountain in Kellogg, Idaho. And so we flew to Silver Mountain. We got out of the plane, and Uncle Bruce could talk anybody into anything. We landed at the airport, and at the airport there in Kellogg, and the guy running the airport got convinced by Uncle Bruce to take us to the gondola. He's like, "Hey, I want to take these boys and take them for a gondola ride." So he took us to the gondola, and we got in line for the gondola. And my dad always said this, and everybody always said this. My Uncle Bruce was so full of BS that I mean, you just never knew what he was saying. It was actually happened or didn't happen. I mean, he had a story for everything. And I still remember being in line, and somebody asked him a question about his hat, and he was wearing a Polartec hat, I believe. I think it said Polartec on it. I can't believe I still remember this. It was this memory's been etched in my mind for years. And Uncle Bruce had an answer for him. "Oh yeah, my brother was part of an expedition, you know, in Antarctica or the Arctic Circle." And he started telling the story. And then I thought about it later, and I was like, "Man, I don't think I have an uncle that's ever been to where he was talking about." And you know, maybe I was too young, and maybe Uncle Bruce, it was a real story, but you know, I mean, I don't know. You just never know. Anyway, so we took the gondola ride up and back, and we came down, and we needed a ride back to the airport. So we were leaving the parking lot, and there was a couple with one young child. I think they had a young daughter with them. And Uncle Bruce, "Hey, hey!" And my Uncle Bruce is a big guy. You know, he's probably 6'3", 6'4", big, you know, stocky build, strong lumberjack, from Idaho. And they had this kind of look on their face like, who is this guy with these two young boys? It's like, hey, can we get a ride from you? And they say, well, and he told them where we were going. And they say, well, sure, you can ride in the back of our pickup, because they were getting into a little Nissan pickup. And he's like, oh, that's fine. So Uncle Bruce and Ken and I were riding in the back of a little Nissan pickup down I-90. And then as soon as we got close to the airport, he just knocked on the window, and we jumped out of the back of the pickup, hopped the fence to get into the airport, off the highway, and then jumped in his plane and took off. Well, on the way back from Spokane, he saw another landing strip from the sky, because we were flying over Silverwood. If any of you know where Silverwood Amusement Park is in northern Idaho. And so Uncle Bruce saw this new airstrip, that had just been built not too long ago. And there was actually, back then, he had, the first thing that Silverwood put in was their railroad tracks. They have a railroad that goes around the park and goes into the woods behind the park and then comes back in. At the time, the only thing they had built was just a couple of buildings around the railroad. And he saw that landing strip, though, so he flew in and landed there. It's a private airstrip. And so the guy, this was ended up being, found out later, this is the original owner of Silverwood, the guy that started the park. He came up to Uncle Bruce, and they started talking, and at first he was a little uncomfortable. But then, of course, after about 10 minutes, him and Uncle Bruce were best friends, right? They both grew up in Idaho, and so we jumped back in the plane and flew back to Spokane, and that was it. But my memories of Uncle Bruce are pretty awesome. I feel extremely blessed to have had somebody like that in my, in my family, in my group circle. And if you talk to any of my dad's family, they have so many memories and stories about Uncle Bruce. They could talk about him for hours and hours and hours. And so, I wanted to share you the spirit of adventure. You can do whatever you want to do in life. All you have to do is just do it. Don't think about the consequences. Just put your full heart into it, and, keep that purity of unconditional love, and nothing can hurt you. Just go out there and just do it. So one more thing, I found this as I was looking through pictures, and I was thinking about putting it in my last slide, but it came out of my school album, and I had forgotten that I made this, and I can't remember what grade I made it in. But I built a Christmas card one year, and Santa is a little bit twisted, right? I mean, Rudolph breaks his leg, and so now he's got to put him out of his misery. And then and then on the inside of the card, I wrote, "Merry Christmas. Just hope you don't have a day like Rudolph's." So with that, I'll leave you with the spirit of adventure. Love you guys.